Hi, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Chelsea Baldwin. I'm one of the co-founders here at Twin Legacy Solutions. This is our podcast of Future Proof Leader. We bring in different guests throughout the U.S., sometimes even internationally. And, it's a variety of business owners, C-suite folks, just folks who are out there doing it and they know what's working, what's not working, what are some of those challenges leaders are having out there today. And where does AI fit into that, right? Like how is automation impacting that landscape? How are we staying ahead of it so we can all just make sure that we are all strategically thinking and growing together? Today, our guest speaker is Nevin Phull. He's a business owner of Crestcom International of the Southern Arizona territory. He's a devoted father and a singer. Nevin, thanks so much for joining today. Before we dive in, do you want to just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely, sure. And good morning, everybody, or afternoon, or whenever the heck you happen to be listening to this. Again, my name is Nevin Phull. I have been blessed, I suppose, to have moved myself into leadership development after years in program management and department work, a voice of the customer, and even more. Professionally, I grew up in the IT space, did almost all of my work starting longer ago than I care to admit, starting in the late 1990s all the way up to the 2020s is when I finally shifted out of it completely and focused on developing people instead. IT was always my first love. Learned a lot about data, where the future was going to go, how we're going to be managing it, and also learned the joys of being able to see that automation and those improvements and how they could improve the performance of a company while at the same time empowering their employees to do even more. So happy to be here.
Awesome, thanks. And I like your IT background because I think it's going to tie in a lot when we start talking about AI and automation. But before we dive too deep into AI, I like to just kind of start high level with I was on a webinar over the weekend actually, and they threw out a statistic. It's like 14% of CEOs have the leadership talent to execute their strategy. However, they're not doing it, right? Like, why is it that leaders are struggling with the execution side of this?
Are you referring to specifically AI or execution
I think,
period?
I mean, let's just talk like strategic. You have a strategic plan, but it's not being
Mhm.
executed, right? Why are we not executing our strategic plans? We spend so much time and sometimes money bringing in people to help us come up with those plans.
So, boy, this is a very nuanced answer, but I'll do my best to get it as short as possible. Obviously, the number that you mentioned is 14%. That's effectively 1 in 7 to 1 in 8 people are actually able to execute their orders. This is not entirely different. We tracked something similar back in the turn of the century into the first 10 years of the 2000s, looking at projects. How often projects considered on time and on budget, and roughly 11% were ever considered in that category. Everything else had overruns or problems or just outright failures. The main challenge that we run into truly is not understanding the human element that comes with what we do. And that's where the leadership elements really become a factor. To put it simply, as we grow up as boys and girls and whatever we are in our space, we go out in the playground, we hang out with our friends, and we learn how to talk, we learn how to communicate. What we don't necessarily learn is how to communicate effectively. And
Mhm.
if you go to school, they don't teach you that. If you go to college and you get a class in communications, well, that's electronic communications and communication systems. It's not how to communicate with someone in a way to get something done quickly and effectively. And as a result, we don't do it. We don't know how. It's just a skill set that we've never developed. There have been people who run businesses for 20 years and still don't know how to get the most out of their employees because they don't know how to communicate them with them in a way that works. There's also one other little hidden element that we all seem to miss, and it's a legacy holdover from the business world, but there's no emotion in business. You don't bring your feelings to work. That's impossible. We're all humans. We all bring our feelings to work. And if we don't have the emotional intelligence to understand where we're at, where you are at, and where anyone else is at, we're never going to get things done. Last thing like a strategy or a change, you don't know how to communicate it. You don't understand the nuances of when your people are resisting, why they're resisting, how to navigate that resistance, how to execute the strategy completely so you understand your internal and your external factors. And in some cases, just how to marshal your time to get the work done. All of these little skills we don't learn growing up.
Mhm.
So in our PhDs. So what do? We miss out. We think we've got it. We do the best we can.
Yeah, and I'll say, I mean, my graduate degree is in leadership education and development, so I'm very in tune with exactly what you're doing, right? And I couldn't agree with you more that even going through, you learn the theory behind it, right? But the actual execution and the practice of it is it's just lacking. And
Oh, absolutely.
even in higher education, it's not quite hitting it. So I think it
I,
just takes
I found the
practice,
same in my
reps.
master's
Yeah.
degree. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Takes practice, reps, and honestly having sometimes that accountability coach partner to help you to see your shortfalls. So
Changing our human skills is hard. You need
yeah.
help to do it. If everyone could just do it like that, most of us wouldn't be in business, and the struggle of the 14% of people getting things done would be a thing of the past. We'd all just move
Right. I mean, also there's just a lot to overwhelm us these days, right? Like there's so much noise with automation and that fear of if I don't get on the bandwagon, I'm going to get left behind, right? Um, what do you think is what should we have as a mindset right now as leaders? With all the noise and the technology, should we be chasing the trends, right? Like the new bells and whistles that are out there. What should leaders be doing to not get left behind, but still make sure that they're keeping up?
Well, without a doubt, I think if we look throughout our entire employment history, certainly within the last 20 years, the data is clear. You have to chase the trends. You have to move in and pick up the new technology to absorb it as much as possible to improve the performance of yourself and your company. So
Mhm.
leaning in to an understanding the trends to a degree is absolutely critical, I believe. And to your
Mhm.
point, if you don't, you will simply get left behind. I mean, we've all well studied the whole situation with mass production back in the 1930s and 40s. When mass production came into effect, anyone else who was still doing things manually immediately got left behind, was bought out. They simply couldn't keep up. Now, I
Mhm.
don't think most of what we do with the AI agency is going to become that severe, but we do have to lean in and start adapting. What can we do? I would also argue that from an ethical perspective, we need to treat this technology like just about every other major tech in the last 40 years. When we had massive interconnection of the World Wide Web coming into us, which was a massive disruptor back in the 80s and 90s, having full
Mhm.
internet-based companies, we didn't lay off everybody. What we did is we took our employees and said, here's some new tools to make you more effective. What you were doing were these 10 things over here. Now you're going to do these two and these new eight. We've got to shift
Mhm.
you. We've got to train you to do things differently and more effectively. And I think that's where we need to be leaning in right now as well.
Yeah, I agree. I am constantly saying that our goal with automation, because that's something obviously we do with our business, it's not to
Yeah,
replace your team, it's to enhance them. We want people to have jobs. We want people to have work. It's good for the economy. It's good for us and our kids, right? Like I have
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
have kids who I wonder one day, like, what is that workforce going to look like for you by the time you're out there? So it's definitely something that's on a lot of our minds right now. As leaders are tackling those challenges, what do you think is best to keep in-house versus let somebody else handle for you, whether it's a human or an automation of some sort, a system, a platform that's out there?
That's a great question. The answer to that is it would really depend on the specifics of the organization
Yeah.
in question. I find one of the areas I think I've looked at the most deeply is customer service. If
Mm,
people have questions, can your AI agent help you do some quick answers?
mm,
Absolutely yes. And I think it
yeah.
should. If you've got a website that's got an FAQ or you just have a simple agent to deal with it on the phone or answer simple
Mhm.
questions like how do I update my billing? When is my next billing cycle? I need to schedule this appointment. If your agent can tie in and do all those things and remove the human hands for something simple and transactional, you should be able to use an AI agent to do that. I fully support that. However, what it gives you an opportunity, if you used to have somebody who was just sitting around taking those phone calls, great. Now we
Mhm.
can move them up the chain to handle the more severe issues from when the agent can't handle it. And believe me, there will be situations where they can't, where they get a far more concierge service model, improving your customer service, improving your connection to your customers. And when they're not receiving inbound calls, you can immediately shift them to making outbound calls. Again,
Mhm.
concierge style, to start finding out how your customers are actually doing. Get some more real time connection with your customers, building the relationship, building that drive to want them to refer you to other people, becoming
Mhm.
something greater than you were.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think there are certain key elements of your business you always want to hold on to in-house, right?
Absolutely.
Like that is not something you want to outsource. That is not something you want to throw at AI. But I do think there's a lot of that administrative work, customer service, lead generation, a lot of that, can just be handled at such a higher capacity than humans are able to do. And then we can just repurpose those people. So what would you say? You work with a lot of organizations and CEOs, executives. What
Mm.
would you say are some signs that you're seeing that maybe those leaders are holding on to too much and they might actually be the bottleneck for growth in their own organization?
Well, it kind of goes back to one of the first things you were talking about, Chelsea. It's the do I get left behind or do I move ahead with it?
Mhm.
Some companies are in the process right now of diving right in. And for the sake of, since I haven't asked anybody for permission to use their names, I'll keep them without. But one of the organizations I'm working with right now was heavily, heavily leaning into adopting as much AI as possible in everything that they could do. I would argue a touch recklessly.
Mhm.
They didn't have a plan. It was just where can we put it? And they were throwing it at every single task within their office. Except in the last 30 days, they realized that the primary job that they do could conceivably be replaced by AI. So now they've now put a full halt on all AI conversions. Like, wait, we have to protect our jobs, which I find slightly amusing in many cases
Yeah.
because the intention was to lean in and get there, but now the fear has restruck. It's like, wait a minute, this is what I do. The AI engine can do that. Why should I still be in business? And they're
Yeah.
trying to figure out the best way to leverage it, which again, the conversation has gone back to what can you do to have it feed you information? AI can tell you trends. AI cannot make a decision for you. If you
Mm-hmm.
trust it to do so, it's going to be flawed. There's not enough data for it to make the decision. You have the nuances. You've got to make the call. So how can you speed the information to you to make the call? That's where the last conversation we had on it was leading you to, for example. And that's been
Mm-hmm.
pretty consistent from what I'm hearing from a lot of groups. Many of the human focused organizations, like in person service groups that deal a lot with interaction, sales organizations or high concierge, high service, hotels, etc., there's not
Yeah.
really a great opportunity for them to replace a lot of their face to face work. And they shouldn't. I don't think most humans want to not interact with humans. People even
Mm-hmm.
complain about kiosks at McDonald's ordering, so they would rather talk to a person. It's a thing.
Yeah, I will say though, those the AI call bots I used to absolutely despise. Anytime I needed to call customer service on anything, it was so
Yeah.
frustrating. And little personal story, but I had to get a dishwasher recently. Ours stopped working, and I had to call Home Depot's customer service, and it was you can tell right away it's a call bot. But it was actually the best experience I've had with a call bot. And to me, that's just like it's improving. It's constantly growing, and the rate that it is improving is phenomenal. I don't care that I'm talking to a bot as long as you give me what I need, right? Like I'm finding that that shift is definitely happening as well versus like a year ago. I don't want somebody to know they're talking to a bot. That's going to hurt my brand. We're seeing less and less of that resistance to change now as well because again, at the end of the day, for certain things, not everything, but for
Yeah.
certain things like scheduling and like some of those basic things, we're just getting the people just aren't as concerned about it as long as it's answering the questions right. It's not wasting their time. It's not asking them dumb questions in return because that used to be you talk to those call bots, they ask you like, no, just let me talk to a human.
Right.
So it's really just improved tremendously, and we're seeing less resistance overall, I'd say, on our side.
I fully agree with that. I also know of one of the other customers I work with here when they installed their call bot with their primary purpose to make certain that the code was put in. If anybody says, just get me to a human, it immediately says, okay,
Immediate.
you're on your way.
Yeah.
And because of that, it doesn't hurt their brand at all. And they found that
Yeah.
most of their customers, roughly 60%, are sticking with the bot to solve most of their basic problems.
Yeah.
They are a customer service focused oriented group, so 40% are going straight through, but a
Hmm.
60% reduction in your time as a doer of things at a customer site, that's a big
Hmm.
improvement, huge improvement.
Yeah. Shifting a little out of AI. Again, you work with a lot of leaders, established businesses, executives. What is keeping everyone up at night other than just AI? What are the trends you're seeing right now?
Frankly, there is still an overarching, I'll use the word fear, but what keeps most organizations up at night is how they're going to get the most out of their employees. The current generation of employees coming in does not have the same view on work ethic and work that we've had in previous generations. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking specifically of Generation Z. The point of view is not the problem. Communication breakdown is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a issue around getting employees engaged and wanting to stay there, wanting to actually work. When we grew up, sorry, I'll speak for myself here because I'm absolutely older than you, but when I grew up, the entire model was doesn't matter what the job is, get a job, get an income, learn how to do the dirty work. You are going to do something you absolutely despise. Suck it up, buttercup, and just get it done. And to be honest, that was a great advice because there is not a single job really have to do this. So we just never really passed that on to the current generations. The more recent generations have started to recognize that they want to be valued for themselves and they want to work on something they really believe in. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of finding that quick job where you're sweeping floors or someplace for 3 months so you can get something on your resume, they pass up on that job to do something that they actually want. So there's a challenge of getting people wanting to come in and actually execute. I know that some of the more physical oriented organizations that I work with now in construction and commercial support, they're having a lot of difficulty because people don't want to do the physical work. That's a
Mm-hmm.
slightly different problem overall, but it's
Right.
how do we translate our expectations to the new workforce and educate them and then include them right away? And I use the word inclusion very specifically here. Most of our younger generations want to feel valued and a part of what they're doing. So our old world was, here's your job, go do it. No,
Mm-hmm.
we've got to put in a little more effort. to make them feel like they're part of us, to bring them in, to train them, to teach them the vision so they can truly understand and believe it. And this kind of goes back to some of the leadership conversation we were having before. We don't, as a general rule of thumb, know how to do it. You have your vision of belief in what tomorrow is. Can you communicate it? If you can, then people can follow along and buy into it. You can be inspiring. If you struggle with that basic element of storytelling, everything else falls down.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I've seen it myself firsthand, especially with trades. Yes, you
Yes.
started to allude to that a bit. The trades are definitely struggling with staffing gaps. There's just a lot of positions that are open that are just hard to fill across a lot of different industries right now. And I think it's a challenge. Absolutely.
It is one of the ones I look at the most is actually our medical industry
Yes.
between hospitals.
That one scares me.
Yeah, well, between
Yeah.
hospitals and all the way up to senior care and back again,
Yeah.
there's such incredible draining jobs.
Mhm.
And we've shifted, especially during COVID, we shifted a model away from having employees to more contract and support.
Mhm.
That gap has generated a lot of lack of engagement, a lot of lack of desire to work. So,
Mhm.
whereas before people would be 100% or at least 80% bought in doing all of the work, now they're 40%. They come in, do their little niche, and go
Mhm.
home. And as soon as they get something that offers them a dollar more, they're out. There's no loyalty. There's no reason to be loyal. And believe it or not, the worst people who are suffering are the patients. The patients
Yes.
are the ones that are paying the price.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know we're going down a rabbit hole with that, but yeah, I mean, you see it with like wait times just to get in for appointments for specialty.
Yes,
That's absurd. So
it is.
that is a concerning one for sure. Yeah, I know that's a whole topic in itself. We could do a podcast just on that, on staffing and cultural trends and all that. But as we start to wrap up here, I like to always kind of end on a what's coming next, looking ahead in the future. If you had the crystal ball, where do you see the next like 3 to 5 years with, what leadership capabilities do you believe are going to separate thriving companies from those that start to really fall behind in the next few years here?
It would depend a little on the model, but those companies that are highly transactional will need to shift away from being just transaction based to more concierge based. As I mentioned, with the advent of the different technologies we have, we can shorten the gaps on a number of things. If you're running a store, you can shorten your gaps on your inventory management system. Your AI system can start giving you the data immediately to help start feeding in much more effectively than the standard review process we've been using thus far. It's a fantastic opportunity to leverage those AI engines on top of your materials management and the like. So you can speed up your internal organizational processes and lower your costs at the same time. I really expect to see that go into place for like an engineering for individual transactional types store model storefronts. That would be great. What I also see is that we are going to continue to struggle when we are starting to leverage more of the AI presence in the rest of the service models. How are we going to maintain our connection with our customers and with our employees?
Mhm.
There, we're already seeing it now as we talked about, but this is not going to be short. When we talk about the next 3 to 5 years, we will be lucky if we adapted this as an organization, as a system of organizations in 10 years. This change is not going to be short. It's not going to be quick. If people could adapt to this type of change and this type of outlook fast, again, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time, and people are really going to need to lean into the human-based skills. Not for nothing. Again, I go back with the leadership development, but do we really know how to lead? Do we know how to communicate? Do we know how to support? A leader's job is not to drive outcomes. A leader's job is to help their people produce the outcomes. And I think we miss that a lot, so we don't focus on those skills to our people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nevin, I know that there's so much more we could dive into. I know, I really appreciate you taking the time here. If somebody who's listening here today wants to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you?
Easiest way is you pop on to me on LinkedIn, or feel free. Would it be appropriate for me to give out my phone
Oh,
number here if people ever wanted to call?
go for it.
Very simply, again, Nevin Phull. I love to talk leadership. I love to talk skills, and I love to just be a sounding board. If you ever want to reach out, you can grab me on my website. Also, check LinkedIn. I've got everything that's the simplest way, nevin.phull on LinkedIn. My phone number is 520-500-7426. Feel free to drop me a text and give me a call. I'd love to schedule some time just to chat with you and introduce ourselves.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nevin, and I wish you the best of luck as you continue to navigate AI yourself in your business and with your clients as well.
It's going to be fun, Charles. I'm looking forward
It
to
is.
it.
I love it. It's something new every day.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.